I know that there's an outrage right now, I guess, about protests that have been peaceful to date, and we certainly continue to encourage that outside of judges' homes, and that's the president's position.
The White House refusing to condemn protests outside the home of Supreme Court Justice Samuel Alito. Critics accusing President Biden's DOJ of being silent on the protests and not enforcing a federal law which makes it illegal to picket or parade outside a courthouse or a judge's residence in an effort to influence a case. It's just the latest protest targeting justices who might overturn Roe v. Wade. A federal judge whose son was murdered during an attack on her home speaking out on the threats. She says lawmakers need to act now.
We've been literally taking the fire for months now, years, in fact, and nothing is being done to protect us. This should not be a partisan issue. This is an American issue, and we need to understand that public debate has a place, and that's in the public forum. It does not have a place in front of justices or judges' houses.
Judge, I remember that awful, tragic case, and just to see that judge made my spine sort of sit up here. What are your thoughts? This is not a partisan issue. This is something that across the party lines we should address.
Well, of course, she was appointed by President Obama. She lost her son. He died. Her husband was shot. He was on America's Newsroom on Dana's show today. She was on America's Newsroom, Judge Esther Salas. In Westchester, we had a federal judge who was shot by a litigant, Richard Duranko. We named the courthouse after him. Make no mistake, judges are the targets of crazed litigants, and they make decisions that determine the trajectory of one's life. And with these people who are out of control, there is a federal statute that anticipates this kind of activity for which there should be arrests by the FBI, prosecutions by the Department of Justice. Now, you could see them going after the January 6th incidents, and, you know, I condemned them immediately and said they needed to be prosecuted. But, you know, show a little even-handedness here. This is a crime with what they're doing. And in the end, if you want to use your energies yelling abort the court, there are children in those houses who are going to suffer, and there are crazed people who are going to act on that kind of lunacy.
Dana, what was it like with her on the show today?
It was interesting. I interviewed her when her son had just been killed, and she was very courageous and willing to come on. And today, when I talked to her in the commercial break before the interview, I said, "How are you doing?" And she says, "It's been 21 months and 18 days." So she lives with the loss of her son front and center in her life. And she said, "There's nothing that they can take away from me." And that's why she and her husband have dedicated themselves to trying to make sure that other judges can be protected. There's legislation that she's asked to be passed, and it has finally, I think actually because of this recent situation, it's finally maybe going to make a move through the House and the Senate and become law, because it really is unfortunate that you have to imagine if, let's say, the Roe v. Wade leak decision went the other way, and there were protests the other way, right? It's still, I guess it still could, but pretty much we know. Okay, well, that's true. Is their position going to be, will the White House's position be the same if the shoe were on the other foot? And I think that we all know the answer is no. And that's what really bothers people, is that you're just asking for the fairness. You're asking for the rule of law to be respected. You're asking for people who are actually taken in for crimes to be held for those crimes and not be let out to commit other crimes. I thought that having her voice out here is so important because she's not a Republican. She doesn't talk about being a Democrat. I actually don't know what her political affiliation is. She is just absolutely for the rule of law. The other thing I just want to mention is I think Senator Chuck Schumer might be the worst majority leader in the history of the Senate. Do you know what they're planning to do tomorrow? Is to vote, have every senator have to vote on a bill that basically says there should be a federal law that will allow abortion up until the moment of birth in all 50 states. And they want to make every single senator have to vote on that. And imagine just the disgusting nature of that, to ask people to do that. I think that there's one thing about the judges, it's the other thing on the merits. Talked a lot about the leaks, but very few people are talking about what we're actually talking about here. That's what the Senate's voting on tomorrow.
Ugly moments bring out ugly things, Greg, and we're seeing it here. I mean, from the Dana has a position about the legislation tomorrow, and obviously we all share the view of what's happened with these judges. What should be done? What is the law that should be passed you would think they might pass a law, the Senate, to protect judges as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely important. They should just enforce the laws that are already here. And I have a feeling that Jen Psaki would not even have approached this topic if it wasn't asked, because it's implied that there's a political favoritism going on here. I mean, the best argument for abortion is just watching that protest. Those people should not have kids, you know? Sorry. But it's just like what you said, Dana, we have moved so far from common sense that you could have an abortion up until birth. And that if you actually disagree with it, you're the extremist. You're the extremist. So in effect, there's nobody, like if you believe that you're speaking up for something that doesn't have a voice, you're bad, you're immoral because there's a living being that cannot speak, and you want to defend that, and you are considered the extremist. That's an abortion of a thought.
Can I just mention one other thing? On Ben Shapiro's podcast today, he played a clip of a leftist commentator who said that she would happily have sex with the leaker.
Yes.
And then if it turned out to be a conservative, she would joyfully abort the fetus and make sure he knew about it. And people who want to have limits on abortion are extremists.
Well, remember Ralph Northam, when he was the governor, he said, you know, she can have the baby, and then they make the baby comfortable, and the woman decides whether or not the baby should live or not.
And you know why they do that? Because they are terrified of Planned Parenthood.
Yeah.
The Democrats are terrified of the pro-choice lobby. They're very powerful, and they don't want to say anything outside of full support of partial birth abortion, because it's going to get them in trouble, and it's going to dry up donations because they want to stay in power. And that's what that's about. This whole violence against Trump supporters, or, you know, this mob thing, that started in 2016. Remember the slew of attacks against Trump supporters, people getting hit in the head with crowbars, with eggs, people's cars getting torched, and that was normalized. None of that was really prosecuted. None of that was ever really talked about. And then it kind of went into the whole resistance thing. Remember the resistance? Remember the inauguration? They firebombed the limousine. There was a lot of destruction out there in the streets. Anything goes during the administration, the leaks, the lies, all that kind of stuff. And then you saw the summer of Black Lives Matter. Remember? Arson, bailed out. Throw someone down a flight of stairs, bailed out. Shot someone. No one ever talks about that. And now you're going to see it again this summer, and they're going to try to ride this wave. The fact that Garland hasn't said a word, imagine if this was a school superintendent's house that was being surrounded by a bunch of people wearing MAGA hats.
They actually went to the school board meeting.
Yeah.
They didn't go to anybody's house.
Yeah, they stepped up to a microphone and waited in line.
Yes.
So come on. And now you have Pelosi, you have Schumer, and now you have the White House okaying people surrounding public officials' homes. Are they really okay with that? Or let that sink in, that the most powerful people in the Democratic Party are okay with that. And like Greg said yesterday, what happened with Black Lives Matter? They thought that was running real cool in the beginning in June and July, and then it started to backfire, and their neighborhoods started to get torched, and their poll numbers started to go down. Watch what happens when their homes get surrounded. They're not going to like that, all right? This is mob season. They have the streets. They're going to run on rogues. They can't run on anything else, but inflation will beat Roe. And last thing, wear a condom. Practice safe sex. Boys and girls, all right? I know it's not perfect, but sometimes stuff happens. Americans are very forgiving in the first couple weeks, but the farther you get and you start talking about partial birth, have that conversation, Republicans. Want to have that conversation? Ask the Democrats about that.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.